Hello, my name is Robert Hernandez, and I am the Chief Data Analyst at Origin World Labs, or OWL. I would like to welcome you to this mini course on market set analysis with Radar. This course is divided into 4 short videos. In the first video, we cover the motivation behind market set analysis. In the second, we look at all the information available in the Radar report. In the third video, we use the Radar report to analyze the rates of a 4-star property. In the final video, I offer some conclusions as well as information on how to get a free sample of the Radar report for your market. Thank you for your attention, and I hope you enjoy this mini course. Now, let's get smarter. In order to follow along, you will have to download the Excel workbook right below this video. It is only 192 kilobytes, so it should download in a few seconds. Once downloaded, please open it to follow along with this tutorial. This is the Radar report for the Miami Beach market for March 10th, 2019. As you know, the typical comp set analysis consists of a handful of properties that typically have some similar physical attributes. For example, they have similar number of rooms, or outlets, or proximity to a landmark, etc. These inward-looking attributes are what most hoteliers take into consideration when creating their comp set. However, in highly competitive markets, shoppers search, not looking so much for physical attributes, but looking for the best value. In fact, when shopping online, shoppers have no idea what your comp set is, so they are not evaluating your rates in terms of your comp set. When online shoppers search for your market, they get a list of hundreds of hotels. Shoppers then go about the process of creating their own competitive set. And the 2 pieces of information that they readily have at their disposal are the hotel's rating and their featured rate. After years of struggling to understand market shifts by looking at the rates of only a handful of hotels, we created a tool that allowed us to quickly understand the trends in the market and how the competitors were acting before it was too late for us to react. Radar was designed to address the limitations of the traditional comp set analysis, mainly that in order for hoteliers to truly understand how their rates are being perceived, they need to take all the market prices into consideration. In other words, hotels need to consider that any hotel that is trying to get the same business is a competitor. Therefore, unless your market is very small and has very few competitors, it is critical for you to focus on how your rates are positioned versus the overall market, rather than just versus a limited comp set. To understand the Radar Market Set Analysis Report, we should first take a look at each of the sections it contains, and then dive into each section in detail. The heart of the Radar Report is the Rate Detail section. In this section, we have the extract of featured rates for one-night stays for every hotel in the market for the next 90 days. The hotels are organized by star ratings, from highest to lowest, and then alphabetically, within each star group. This Radar report is for the Miami Beach market. The Miami Beach market has around 140 hotels that have a 2-star rating or higher and have at least 20 rooms. The first set of measures that we have is the unclustered metrics. In this section, we display the results of taking a set of measures from the raw rates that we extracted below. As you can see, for each star rating, we have the lowest rate and the highest rate and the middle rate. The middle rate is the mean for that star rating set. Then we can see the averages for each third of the rates. So we have the average of the top third highest rates, the average of the middle third of the rates, and the average of the lowest third of the rates. For each star rating, we also have the count of the number of hotels that are displaying rates for that day, and we have the percentage represented by that count. As you can clearly see, all the measures are available for every star rating. Now, let's focus on a very important detail. Notice that in the unclustered section, the pricing in the market is highly illogical because, for example, on March 19th, the lowest rate for a 2-star hotel is $99, while the highest rate is $199. But then, the lowest rate for a 3-star hotel is $103, and the highest rate is $299. How can it be possible that a 3-star hotel be priced lower than a 2-star hotel? Shouldn't the lowest 3-star rate be higher than the highest 2-star rate? We again see the same issue with the 4-star rates. The lowest rate for a 4-star property is $159. Shouldn't that rate be higher than the highest 3-star rate of $299? Of course, we all know that the reason why the rates seem that disorganized is because hotels, regardless of their star rating, price themselves into higher or lower buckets depending on their revenue strategy for that day. The unclustered metric is the way that hoteliers see the market if they only focus on their limited comp set. But this is not how online shoppers make purchasing decisions. Online shoppers create their own comp sets by looking for the best value by using the relationship between a hotel's star ratings and its price. This is how shoppers determine whether a hotel's rates are competitive. For that reason, the heart of the radar report is the clustered metric section. In this section, we mathematically organize the rates for every hotel in the market so that each rate is identified into the bucket that is statistically closest to that rate. Now, we can see that for March 19th, the 2-star bucket consists of any rate that is between the lowest rate of $99 and the highest rate of $159. So mathematically, that is the 2-star bucket for that day. Similarly, for the 3-star bucket, the lowest rate is $160 and the highest rate is $223. And the same applies for the 4 and 5-star buckets. So now you can clearly see that the rates increase logically from the lowest star rating to the highest. Notice that the clustered metric section has almost all of the same statistics as the unclustered section. I would like to point out one powerful metric named the index of rated hotels. That is simply the multiple of the number of hotels for any star in the clustered section versus the unclustered section. Again, using March 19th as an example, in the unclustered section, we see that there are 16 2-star hotels showing rates. But when we cluster the buckets, we see the 2-star consists of 26 hotels. Therefore, there are actually 1.6 times the number of 2-star hotels pricing themselves as 2 stars. In other words, on this day, a number of non-2-star hotels have priced themselves into the 2-star bucket. The movement of hotels from one bucket to another can be clearly seen in this section, where you can see the count of hotels moving up and down between buckets. Now, let's take a look at all the measures at the top of the radar report. The metrics at the very top are specific to your property. In this case, we are looking at real data for a hotel in this market, but we have hidden the name to protect its identity. The first row at the top shows the day of the week for that day, with Friday and Saturday highlighted. The next row shows the number of days until the day of arrival. The third row shows the actual date. Right under the date, you can see the featured rate for every day for this hotel. The next row gives you the clustered bucket where each of the rates lies. To understand where the rate is positioned within the clustered bucket, the next row identifies whether the rate is in the low, middle, or high third of that bucket. Right below that, you have the ranking of the rates within the bucket. In other words, from the most expensive to the least expensive within that bucket, what is the position of the rate? The next row is a graphical representation of where the rate is within its clustered bucket. As you can see, the colors change depending on the bucket, and the legend for those colors is at the very top of the radar report. Therefore, reading from the top to the bottom, if we take March 19th as an example, you can see that the rate of $197 puts the rate in the 3-star bucket. It's in the middle third of that bucket, and it is the 19th most expensive rate out of 53 within the 3-star bucket. Graphically, you can see that the rate is almost right in the middle of the 3-star bucket. So once again, the focus of the radar report is to put your featured rate within the context of what everybody else is charging in the market. That point of view is more in line with how potential guests shop online than if you simply analyze your rate by only comparing it to your limited comp set. Now, let's take a closer look at the results from this radar report, and let's extract some insights from the positioning of the rates for our sample hotel. Again, the rates for this sample hotel are real, but we have hidden the name for obvious reasons. So let's look for some examples of how radar reveals information that is hidden by the traditional comp set. Let's first focus on March 13th. The rate of $197 is situated in the low range of the 3-star bucket. Therefore, the first and most obvious observation is that this property is priced well below its 4-star counterparts. Could it be possible that they're trying to compensate for a lack of demand? But it could also be that they're pricing themselves too low in a low demand week. Again, the rate of $197 is situated in the low range of the 3-star bucket. Note that this is the same rate as the Tuesday and Wednesday rates, which are rates in the middle of the 3-star bucket. Here we have the same rates in 2 different buckets within the same week. This is due to the fact that the rates in the market are trending higher for Wednesday. The result, and probably unknown to the revenue manager, is that this hotel's rates have drifted into a lower range within the same bucket. If that is intentional, then the revenue manager has done a great job. But if it is not, then this radar report has highlighted that the hotel rates might be cheaper than the revenue manager intended. If we take a closer look at the metric for each bucket for the 13th, we see that, compared to the previous 2 days, each cluster has higher rates in every metric. So this is a clear example of how you can hold your hotel's rate at a point that you feel is appropriate, but the entire market shifts, and without you realizing it, your position is no longer in line with your strategy. We can see the same phenomena in the weekend dates. While this property does raise its rates for the weekend, it actually drops even further into the 2-star cluster when compared to the rates of the rest of the market. For example, on the weekend of the 22nd and 23rd, the property's rate increases to $260, but that rate puts it in the 2-star bucket. Unless this property has a serious issue generating demand, I would say, at first glance, it looks like they're leaving money on the table. Let's jump to the weekday rates of March 31st through April 4th. The rates for this property dropped by over $100 from Sunday to Monday. However, the hotel stays within the 3-star cluster. The market has shifted significantly for that week. As you can see, over 20 or half of the 3-star hotels priced themselves into the 2-star cluster for these days. The $100 difference in rate, therefore, may not be enough for this property to appear as a value, or it may actually be too much if its occupancy did not call for it to dip into the mid part of the 3-star bucket. Again, the revenue manager must take into consideration the relative position of the rates given the hotel's revenue and branding objectives. Moving forward, starting on May 1st, this property has a rate of $170 for most dates. As you can see, this rate is sometimes a value and sometimes it's not, depending on how the whole market moves. On the weekends, this rate is actually quite inexpensive for a 4-star hotel. It actually falls within the 2-star bucket. On the weekdays, this rate is actually relatively more expensive. It actually falls within the 4-star bucket. Now, from experience, I know that the Miami Beach market is a weekend market. In other words, rates and revenue peak on the weekends. Therefore, this revenue manager may not be aware that their rates are actually relatively less of a value on the weekdays than on the weekends. With Radar, you can analyze each rate in detail to make sure your offer is positioned correctly. Radar includes dozens and dozens of metrics for each day. You can dig into each of these in order to gain knowledge about your market and the positioning of your rates. In general, there are 5 key pricing mistakes that you can avoid by doing a proper market set analysis with Radar versus a traditional comp set analysis. The first is keeping rates unchanged as competitors move into your cluster. For example, a 3-star hotel would probably want to adjust rates if many 4-star hotels move into its cluster. In the traditional comp set, the 3-star would typically not list 4-star properties to monitor their movements. The second is keeping rates unchanged as hotels with your same rating move to another cluster. For example, if the pricing trend for the 3-star properties is to price at the 4-star level, then that may signal an opportunity for you to raise your rates. The third is keeping your rates unchanged when the entire market shifts. As we saw with our sample hotel, it pays to be aware of market shifts up or down. The fourth pricing mistake you can avoid with Radar is pricing too high within your value cluster. You are probably limiting your chances of being booked if you are not somewhere in the sweet spot of your bucket. For some properties, that may be at the top third. For others, it may be in the middle or lower third. Finally, the fifth mistake is pricing too low within your value cluster. You may be leaving profit on the table if you are severely underpriced compared to your cluster. We saw this in our example previously where, even though the property priced itself higher on the weekends, it actually moved to a lower cluster. To conclude, the Radar report gives you a bird's eye view of the movements within your market and how those movements affect the value perception of your rates. It also points out where there may be opportunities for you to increase or decrease rates with confidence. No longer will you have to worry if your rate changes are too high or too low. This is the power of Radar, and that is why the revenue managers that use it make it their #1 competitive analysis tool. To get a free sample of a Radar report for your market, simply email me your hotel name at robert@originworld.com. Thank you for your attention. I hope you learned something new.